This is Sam Laidlow, and you're listening to the MX Endurance Podcast.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the MX Endurance Podcast, where we look at everything that's been happening in the world of endurance sports. My name is Tim Ford, and I'm joined by none other than the penultimate legend, the sexy shepherdess, who has the sexiest voice in triathlon, James Bale. Now, Jimbo, I'm not sure if you checked your Instagram account recently, but I saw a video today that I sent you, and it's of a woman out trail running, and she's being followed by a flock of literally 100 sheep. And I forwarded it to you. I'm like, is this how you became the sexy shepherdess? Because
that's how it's going down right now, mate. And as per your intro, my voice is a little bit sexier this week. So I think I've got a bit of a woken up with a sore throat this morning. So that's not fun. But here we are. Another day, another podcast. And you're right. Whenever I go trail running nowadays, I do just get followed by sheep. It's like a magnetism. How's things your end?
No, good here, mate. Apart from the fact that it is literally raining cats and dogs outside, and I have to go I had to do a set of 400s and 800s to do today, and looks like I'm going to be doing them on the treadmill instead, which is never fun.
You know what you should do?
What's that?
Suck it up and get out in the rain, mate.
You see,
one day you might be racing and it might be raining, and you've got to be able to cope with it.
I do run in the rain a lot. Like I run every Friday, do my 21K Friday night run, and it's often, again, curse of the weekend, it's raining quite often. So I do run in the rain a lot, fairly often. Because it's a speed session, though, I'm a little bit nervous about, because it's not like, I haven't been able to go to my track in about 6 months because it's just waterlogged permanently. But yeah, there's a couple of sharp turns on the trail that I run, and I don't want to be trying to do that at, 3-minute pace in the wet and just slide out. So yeah, you're right. I should just man up, but not for a speed set. I don't think it's probably...
No, fair enough. Well, what will you do? Will you set the treadmill at a certain speed and jump in and out of it at your speed intervals? Or will you give it the wind up and wind down on each one?
Probably the wind up, wind down to make... I was thinking it might make the interval actually a little bit shorter because I've got that 10 seconds of it speeding up and speeding down.
Oh, I like the jump in and out approach myself. That's the play.
I did a park run last week for the first time in like 6 months.
How did that go?
I reckon, about 2K in, I was questioning my life's choices, going, this was a huge error. Like, why did I do it? Reese, my coach, had me he wanted me to do a 5K time trial. And I was like, I'll do park run. That's a good idea. And I think my average heart rate is 188 or something like that. He said, Jesus, your heart beats fast. I'm like, yeah, I think I was nearly dying. Like it was a bit of a shock to the system. I'm about a minute and a bit off my best. So there's plenty of room for improvement, but it was good to get out there and do a little bit of competition.
So go on then. But, everyone's on the edge of their seat, mate. What's your 5K park run time?
Oh, I did 18:23 on the weekend, I think it was.
Oh, that's not bad.
And I'm my best is 17:21, I think. Same course, so I'm hoping to get that. I'd like to do a sub 17 park run at some point. I'm getting old these days, mate, so I need to be getting on with it. Unfortunately,
talking about heart rates, I went for a 15K trail run yesterday, and I couldn't get it up, mate. I couldn't get my heart rate.
It's a common problem, mate. We're talking about trail running now,
which obviously doesn't. That's how I do my trail.
We're such children. We're so juvenile.
Yeah, my heart rate was unnaturally low yesterday. I think it might have been the intro to this cold, this sore throat that I was woken up with this morning because I could not get my heart rate out of zone sort of 1 or 2. But eventually it did, and then I woke up with a sore throat this morning. So
they do say that is a sign of fatigue. But anyway, James, this podcast is the official podcast of MX Endurance, the world's premier endurance sports community, created by 4-time world champion Chris McCormack. Jimbo, I ask you every week, what's something you like about MX Endurance?
I mean, it's going to get a bit repetitive, but with the onslaught of Super League racing that we're seeing at the moment, it's the communal approach we're taking to watching the racing. Because I didn't manage to watch the Super League race live. I did watch it. I did watch the replay afterwards, but it's good to feel like you're involved with people that are watching it live because there's such so much information and messages flying about. I love it. I just think the community feel is really taking an extra step nowadays.
Yeah, it's always good when there's actually events on to watch and stuff. And I mean, as people are gonna hear this week, there was certainly not a shortage of races to follow over the weekend. Like, there's actually so many results this week that we're just reading through some of them because I think this would be a 3-hour episode if we tried to go through every race. And to be honest, I didn't follow a lot of the races.
No, that is the problem with triathlon, isn't it? It's difficult. It's so many different silos of racing and so hard to follow along with everything that's happening at once.
I was thinking about this, and again, it's back to Tim's rant corner that seems to be becoming a weekly thread at the moment. I don't understand why so Super League is like 4 races or 5 races a year, and I don't understand why we always criticize IronMan and the long distance stuff for doubling up. But you had a World Cup event and you had a French Grand Prix event, which meant that you had, I think, was it Yella Gaines and somebody else was doing the World Cup event, and then you had Alex Eoff doing the French Grand Prix event, which means that these are athletes that I would love to see at Super League are doing other events. I don't get it. Like, a couple of years ago, every single short course superstar was at Super League, and I'll say it again. Like, I don't understand why it's sort of the fields have just become a bit diluted in recent years. It's a little bit like, come on, guys, haven't we learnt from the Ironman Challenge / PTO lesson of not put every single race on the same weekend? Apparently not. Apparently it just keeps happening. So,
and on it will continue, I think, until there's a much more coordinated approach across the board. You know, when you've got different entities competing for an audience, it's never going to play out quite like that.
Well, we spoke about, there's one entity we do talk often about their failures and how they've fallen short. That is the Ironman brand. However, I feel like this first piece of news is something very, very good that Ironman has done. And this article comes from Romy von Louise Schoenveld at Triathlon Today. And that says, Flora Duffy is to race the 70.3 World Championships after officially receiving an invitation from Ironman as a wildcard. It's been on her bucket list for quite a while, but finally the opportunity is there. Flora Duffy will race the upcoming Ironman 70.3 World Championships in St. George later this year. St. George bound, she shares her excitement. Officially received an invitation from Ironman as a wildcard. I really appreciate it and will do my best to add to the excitement of the women's race. The reigning Olympic champion has been trying to qualify before, but hadn't been very lucky with her middle distance races. She says, the truth is I've been trying to get to 70.3 Worlds for a few years now. I really wanted to race in Port Elizabeth, South Africa in 2018, being in South Africa, but I got injured. An injury that somewhat kept me down through Nice 2019. I then did qualify for the 2020 Worlds in New Zealand, but then the race was cancelled due to COVID. My slot was rolled to 2021, but after the Olympics, I was exhausted and did not race. So laid out like this, it has been a journey, this year included. I'm really thrilled to get to the start. Finally, Jimbo, we have spoken a lot about this, and I'm extremely happy to see that this happened. What do you think?
Why would they not? It would be such a foolish decision not to give Flora Duffy a wildcard because, I mean, in my mind, you can change the title of this to Flora Duffy to race and probably win the 70.3 World Championships. You know, I can see her doing really well in this race, and her quality and ability to put out the big performances on the big days is, you know, second to none, really. So I'm really pleased to see it, mate. Really pleased to see it.
It's weird to think that there's going to be like 3 world champs in St. George. Like, again, I keep thinking of it. I'm like, oh no, we had that last year and then this year. I mean, that St. George race this year now is becoming absolute fire. Lucy Charles is back on form. We're going to see how she goes this weekend. Daniela Reef, if she races, it has been absolutely red hot. We saw what she did at the Collins Cup. You throw in a Flora Duffy, Ashley Jennell. Like, it's looking out to be. I think I'm more excited about the 70.3 world champs in the women's race than I am about the men's race this year because of this list is looking seriously deep. But yeah, Flora Duffy, I think I'm pretty excited about seeing what she does at that race.
Whatever happens, her inclusion makes it a more exciting race, not simply from a what's going to happen perspective, but she will have an impact on the race, come what may.
It's also good to know that Ironman listens to the podcast, mate, because we've obviously been advocating for this for quite some time. And it's good to see the
without
influence.
question. I mean, we are the dictators of the sport nowadays, aren't we? We can decide who wins and loses by picking them to win or lose.
Correct. The opposite.
Yeah,
the opposite of what we say. After I interviewed Flora a couple of weeks ago, so if you haven't already, guys, I interviewed Flora Duffy like 3 weeks ago. I was like, seriously, have there been conversations? She's like, nope, nothing. So I'm really happy to hear that they've done it because good. This next one, mate, is a weird one, and I've put
I just
it in
scrolled
there.
down.
I thought
I didn't know this was coming up, but I've just scrolled down, and
I thought it was relevant for your previous comment.
my
I got this one.
issues.
Can you imagine me like an hour ago as I'm preparing the show notes for this week, and I'm scrolling through, and it's like Ironman Wisconsin, Santa Cruz 70.3. Ironman Wisconsin comes with a giant penis t-shirt. I did a little bit of a double take, to be honest. This article comes from Tim Moria at Try Today, and it said, people make fun of Ironman Wisconsin organization, which chose to put the likeness of a huge penis on their athlete's jersey. That choice is not entirely strange, though, as the penis on the jersey refers to the sculpture located at Camp Randall Stadium, where the Wisconsin Badgers American football players find their home stadium. That sculpture also looks like a penis and is famous for that reason. At least most triathletes are not happy with the choice of the Ironman Wisconsin organization, as quite a few comments are pouring in from athletes who said they will never want to wear this shirt. Now, James, have you seen the shirt with the giant penis on it?
No, but I want to. So it's a shirt with a picture of a sculpture that looks like a penis. How much does it look like a penis? Have you seen it?
I've seen it. It's a cycling jersey, and it's like a multicolor. It almost looks like a Van Gogh or a Picasso painting.
I'm googling it.
And then just off to the side is this very large, long, phallic-looking brown erection. Is the word? That's what you call an upright thing. It looks like a giant dick, mate.
It does, doesn't it? That is tremendous. I want one of those shirts. If anybody's listening who's got access to one of those and isn't going to wear it, I will happily wear that as I go about my business.
So most people.
I mean, come on.
It's
quite amusing. And if people are saying they never want to wear this shirt, I mean, who wears their race shirts outside of race day anyway? I mean, you won't find me wearing my finisher t-shirts anywhere, particularly other than around the house sometimes.
Wasn't it? I think it was at the Collins Cup. It was at the Collins Cup broadcast where they had Rudy von Berg's dad, Rudolf von Berg Sr., and he was being interviewed. And I noticed that he had the 2016 70.3 World's Finisher shirt on, and I was like, "That's an interesting choice of costume for the Collins Cup." I'm going to make everybody know that I raced 70.3 Worlds in 2016.
Conflict of brands, yeah. It's it's a personal choice, isn't it? What you wear and where you wear it, and it's up to you entirely. But I'm not one for wearing sort of triathlon related finisher t-shirts anywhere other than the weekend of the race I did. You won't find me wearing a finisher t-shirt from a previous race to another race. I mean, I'm in pretty normal clothing until it's time to put a tri-suit on, if I'm honest.
Get the hustle shirt, man. We know about the hustle shirt.
The hustle shirt. Yeah.
I used to use the finisher shirts when I used to go to the gym and do the spin classes. But these days I've got these really good Mizuno shirts that they seem to hold the moisture in when I'm on the bike trainer now. And I've got like 3 of them, and that's all I wear on the trainer. I wear those with a pair of bike shorts. I have not worn a finisher shirt in God knows how long, to the point now that when they offer them, like, "Oh, what size do you want?" I'm like, "I'm good, thanks. No, I don't need it. Thank you." And I wish when you sign up, you could just give the option of like, "No, thanks. I don't want the shirt." Because I don't wear those anymore.
That's why I'm quite enjoying the trail running ultras that I do, because they don't give you a shirt or a medal; they just give you a cup of beer at the end. Happy days.
Don't touch my towel though. I love my finisher towels.
You like your towels, do you?
Yeah, I like the towels.
They are useful for the trainer.
It's 100%. That's that, and for the pool. That's all. I'm that guy at the pool who's got his 70.3. The problem in Australia now is they're all the same. Because they've got 6 races, so they just put the name of each race on the towel. So so I've got like 10 versions of the same towel. But
anyone listening, change your towels. Tim Ford says so.
Exactly. This is literally Ironman. This is just a wish list episode. But while we're on Ironman Wisconsin, now I believe this race was covered. I didn't watch it because of the time differences and stuff. But the pro men results were Brent McMahon in first place with 8:36.02. Second place was Cody Beals, 8:50.24. Third place, Adam Fay in 9:04.26. Fourth place, Jordan Bryden, 9:14.17. Fifth place, Patrick Brady, 9:23.21. In the women's race, Chloe Lane from Australia, good on you, 9:45.21. Second, Jess Smith, 9:53. Third place, Melanie McQuaid, 10:06. Fourth place, Rachel Mensch, 10:12. And fifth place, Lenny Ramsey from the Netherlands. We're in results corner, Jimbo, because we're just going to burn through a whole bunch of them because a lot of these races I haven't really followed. But it's always important to give the credit to the athletes who've gone out there and done their thing. The other races that happened this weekend were Ironman 70.3 Santa Cruz. In the pro men's race, it was Eric Lagerstrom, 3:44.47 in first place. Second place, Tim O'Donnell, 3:45.34. And Matthew Sharp, third place, 3:46.13. In the women's race, Sarah Crowley, 4:12.13. Second place, Marinda Carfrae, 4:16.59. Third place, Pamela Oliveira, 4:17.41. Those races both had pretty decent fields, to be honest. Both top three are good name athletes. Good to see Sarah Crowley on top of the podium again. So
totally,
yeah. Keep going, mate. We're going to keep going through the results. This one, Ironman 70.3 Sunshine Coast. In the men's race, we saw Max Newman, 3:29.47. Second place, Steve McKenna, 3:29.59. Third place, Nicholas Free, 3:31.16. In the women's race, Lottie Wilms, 4 hours flat. Second place, Hannah Wells, 4:01. And third place, Penny Slater, 4:02. I would like to give a special shout out to Matthew Sweeney, listener of the podcast, friend of mine, and a guy that I coach who did a humongous PB of 4:13 in Sunny Coast. Well done, Sweeney, you legend. I was extremely happy to see you do that. I told him it was going to go into 4.5 hours.
That's not fucking about, is it?
4:13, mate. What a well-executed race by Sweeney. So
that just shows the quality of the MX Endurance coaching team, headed by Tim.
Exactly, mate. That's...
Another
race that we're going to get through is, and again, there was so many MX guys who raced. I know that we had Terry and Alicia, and I'm thinking on the spot now. I think Angela was there, Chris Stevens was there, and others. I'm sure that I'm forgetting, but congratulations to all of you guys. I know you caught up. I saw the photos and stuff, so well done. Another race that happened over the weekend was Challenge Almere, which in the men's race we saw Kieran Lindars, 7:55. Second place, Niek Heldorn, 8 hours flat. Third place, Andrew Starkowitz, 8:01. In the women's race, Katarina Wolf, 9:10. Second place, Lena Kristen Schink, 9:15. Third place, Jenny Nay, 9:21. It's a lot of races, mate.
So much racing.
Lots and lots of races.
It all happens on the same weekend, doesn't it? All the time.
Yeah, and then the other one, obviously, that I keep saying obviously, like people know what I'm about to... it's a bad habit. I've got to get out of that habit. Ironman Wales happened over the weekend, and this, maybe I'm a little bit biased, but this is one that I want to focus on a little bit. I got this race summary from Jonathan Turner at Try 24/7, and it says, Britain's Joe Skipper justified favouritism but only after a big scare as he claimed a remarkable victory in wet conditions at Ironman Wales. He had 5 minutes to make up after the swim, but that had ballooned to over 23 minutes after mechanical issues in the early stages on the bike. Even by T2, while he'd moved into the top 5, the deficit still stood at 15 minutes 54 seconds to the leader, who continued. But everything changed on the run as Skipper's charge began. So much so that by the halfway point, with Skipper clocking a 1:16 half marathon, the gap wasn't much than 3 minutes to the soon-to-retire Boris Stein, who by now had taken over the lead. Stein's stay at the head of affairs didn't last until the 30-kilometre mark, with Skipper now out on his own, and he would go on to register a 2:37.25 marathon to cross the line in 8:35.49 and win by over 8 minutes and book his Kona 2023 place. So in first place, you have Joe Skipper, 8:35. Second place, Boris Stein, 8:43. Third place, Kevin Morrell, 8:50. Now I'm going to keep going here, mate, because Tim Don, who we know for a long time has had the record for the fastest Ironman, some argue kind of still does, if you want to get into the nitty-gritty of records, said, he said, it's more than world-class, it's phenomenal. That is a Kona winning performance, but it's not at Kona. My worry is, can he back it up with something special in Kona? On addressing Joe, he said, your altitude blockout in Font-Romeu with his crew has obviously done him the world of good. If he turns up to Kona and performs like that, he will win. He will beat the Norwegians. Quite a statement, and we'll find out in less than 4 weeks if it proves true. Jimbo, this was a stellar performance.
Yeah, I mean, it was a performance for the ages, eh? Looking at the time he lost on the bike and then the way he worked his way through that field. And a 1:16 half marathon at the halfway point in an Ironman is moving. And it's even more so on a course like Wales. Wales is not a flat course by a long way. And the conditions are testing, the swim is testing, the bike is incredibly hilly, and so is the run. So, I mean, he's showing exactly the sort of form he needs to show at this point, but is he showing it in the wrong place? That's the question that Tim Don is making, isn't it? Because with Kona so close to this race, can he back up this sort of performance with another performance like that? Now, knowing Joe as we do, I would say the answer is yes to that. I think he's that kind of gritty athlete. He's got that sort of racing himself into form kind of approach to things. Whether or not he can win in Kona, we are yet to see. But I think he certainly can bring a performance like this out of himself by backing up this race off the confidence this brings and also the physicality of it.
Yeah. I think Joe has had two of the best performances we've seen this year. And not just necessarily from an execution point of view, but I think if you look at the story around them, like what Joe did at sub 7 with a week's notice. And again, people might think it's staged. It was legitimately a week's notice Joe was given. To do that, it fucking blew me away. And now this, to go from 23 minutes down, where any other person would be like, I'm done, I'm going to DNF or whatever, to go on and win by 8 minutes, running that marathon on that course, like it's so impressive to me. And I think Joe is an incredibly I said this before we hit record. Joe's a real confidence-based athlete. And I think if you look at the start of the year that he had, where he, tried to do South Africa, wasn't quite right, worked out that he had COVID, recovered from COVID, jumped in a sub, then that meant he couldn't really focus on Ironman Nice. And and he's had a bumpy year. He's missed, he didn't have the points to go to the Collins Cup, which I know he really wanted to. To see him then go, you know what, I'm going to stop racing I'm going to do a decent block of training at altitude. I'm going to really focus on the back end of my year. And to see him come down and do this, like I said, he's a confidence-based athlete. And I hope that this gives him a lot of confidence going into the biggest race of the year, followed by what could be another number of big performances for him post-Kona, depending on how Kona goes. But I'm very, very excited to see how he goes to Kona now. And we forget he is one of the best runners. He is one of the best runners in the sport. And I like that did you see that his Strava file he put up, I'm not going to need 5 minutes in Kona, Christian? Like, just love he's calling Christian out.
Yeah, I mean, and that in itself shows that the level of competition in Kona is going to be different. It's going to be a step up from the level of competition he faced in Wales. I mean, there aren't many sports that you can have a mechanical by the side of the road, lose 20 minutes and then still win by 8. I mean, if that happened in Kona, he'd have had his legs taken out from under him, and there's no losing 20 minutes in Kona and then coming back and winning by 8. Do you know what I mean? It's a different.
We saw what happened to Ali,
game.
Didn't we?
Exactly.
Ali tried that in 2019, and
I mean, this shows he's got the form.
100%.
But it's Kona in itself is a pressure cooker because you've got the best in the world there in some of the most challenging conditions. Totally different conditions.
I do wonder.
Ironman Wales. It's cold over here at the moment.
It's true. Yeah. He had this chain fall off, I think, in South Africa, and now he had his chain fall off and not in Wales over the weekend. So I don't know what you need to do, Joe, to keep that fucking chain on your chain ring, mate, but do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, get a chain stay or something, because that's it's bad mechanical luck twice in a row. But yeah, I mean, you said it. We saw Ali Brownlee try to make up that gap that he lost to Frodo in 2019.
So did his chain just come off and he lost 20 minutes? I mean, how do you lose 20 minutes putting a chain back on, or did it snap?
Had a knot in it, so he couldn't actually get the chain to.
Good Lord,
run straight. Yeah,
Good
apparently
Lord. Somebody
somebody had to come with pliers, and they had to disassemble the chain and re-put it back together.
Oh, well, that's joyous, isn't it?
I know, because I dropped chains before. When I had the one by, I dropped chain a few times, and you sort of reach down and flick it back on or whatever.
Yeah, most of the time you can do it without even stopping your bike, as long as it hasn't jammed.
Exactly. I think that's, I don't know. But yeah, that's that, mate. The next one, I'm going to let you take the lead on this one, because you actually got to watch this race. And
I knew you would. I did get
nice
to
to have you.
I watched it this morning. I watched it.
Can I actually just we should stop for a moment, mate. I do apologize that I haven't brought this to your attention, but this reminded me that you are going through a loss at the moment. So I do want to make sure that you're okay before we take this next story up.
It's okay? I mean, it weighs heavy on my heart, Mr. Ford, as you can imagine. No, I assume we're talking about the head of state for the UK that's just passed away, are we?
Yeah, Georgia Taylor Brown's beautiful tribute at the finish line just made me remember. And I did check in with you on last weekend when the news broke. You were one of the first people that I contacted to make sure that you were doing okay.
As you know, I'm far from a monarchist, or a royalist or whatever. So the best I can muster for a family that's lost a 96-year-old relative is, I'm really sorry to hear about that, and then I move on with my life. So I think there's a lot of performative stuff happening in the UK at the moment, and the social media has gone crazy. I'm just letting them all get on with it. We've all got a day off on Monday because it's the funeral. British Cycling
We have
released their guidance that no one should go out on their bikes during the period of mourning or during the funeral service. And I was just like,
Is that
what?
why you've not been riding?
Yeah, that's
why you've
why
not been riding
Yeah,
lately?
of course. Yeah, that's why.
That's what I mean. You say you're not taking it too seriously, but I think
few
you
days
are.
vow of silence, mate, just to let it all pass and sink in. No, it's the monarchy's not for me. But always sorry to hear when someone's lost a relative.
Yeah.
Anyway, Super League Triathlon Munich.
League.
Hauser snatches the win. This is a review was taken from Tri 24/7 and Jonathan Turner. Now, stage 1, it was the Sharks' Tyler Reed who both exited the water first and claimed the first short shoot, which Wild would later use. On the bike, there was a real tussle to grab the second one with him. Valentin Vient snatching it for the Rhinos. It was handed to Velasca. But losing ground on the leg was Johnny Brownie after a drop train, which he managed to get back on. And by the end of the run, he was up to 5th, with Wild Lau leading the way. Stage 2, Nana in the mix. Kenji Nana led out the second swim, but Hauser, Brownlee, Velasa and Wild were all in touch. But it was Wild who went in on the second run as he looked to repeat his London heroics, and that'll give him a cushion of 5 seconds, plus a short shoot on the rest by the time he dived into the water for the final time. And worth pointing out, it was a huge swim was coming from Hauser, who was 14 seconds down by the end of stage 2. Stage 3, Hauser again delivered what he needed when he needed it most. His time of 3:34 compared to 3:40 for Velasca and Nana, 3:44 for Brownlee and 3:54 for Wild. It all meant the front 5 had it between them and all on the penultimate leg. It was Velasca who put the power down on the bike to lead virtually the whole way around. Coming into transition, he almost lost control of his bike. This was quite the moment. And a stunning rescue, keeping him right in contention. He and Wild took their short shoots at the start of the run, but lurking just behind was Hauser and less than half a second separating the front trio. Hauser would prove the strongest as he put daylight between himself and the others to take the victory, which moves him ahead in the overall Championship Series League. So the results on Sunday, the 4th of September, were Hayden Wild. Hang on. Oh, blimey! I've still got the London results in here. How did that happen?
The winner was Matthew Hauser. Second place was Vasco Velasa, and third place was Hayden Wild. Or was Hayden Wild? Was Hayden second? No, Hayden was third. Yeah, there you go.
So that was how it went down.
Just you talking about the Vasco Velasa moment where he nearly fumbles his bike as he comes in that last race reminded me. Now I don't know if you saw it. I shared it on my Instagram story overnight, and it's a reel by somebody called IronMan, Yeah Man, and they've done a Chuck Norris versus triathletes video where they've got the dun 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 music, and it's Chuck Norris with his gun, and then he shoots it, and then you see like a triathlete cramp and fall over, and he does this for several different. But the finish is it's Chuck Norris with a machine gun shooting, and it's Vasco Velasa dropping his bike and trying to catch it. If you haven't already, check out this. I'll send it to you, James, afterwards. It made me laugh. It's very, very good. But yeah, I thought that was funny. But this race, mate, was. I'll be honest. I thought when I saw Hayden move to the front, it's game over. I think Hayden is so dominant this year.
It was gripping, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, compared to the women's race, which we'll get to, which was literally a one-woman show, basically. This really had a lot of changes and things. Like Kenji Nima was sensational. I have not seen Kenji
he was my man of the race. Kenji Nina was although he didn't win, I thought his performance and his grit and the way that he was, because I saw Michael Gillingham get interviewed during the race, and he said that he was concerned because Kenji had been putting in some huge training mileage in between the two Super League races, and he thought he was going to do himself a disservice there, but proved him wrong, really, because what a performance to be out there at the front dictating terms like that. And then the power of Hauser's swim, mate, he was 20 odd seconds behind going into the final leg, and to put that sort of swim in to bring himself back into contention. I thought we were going to see a repeat of last week where he was up there and then he fades because the swim he's known for this good swim. Wasn't sure he was going to have the run legs for it. But I was so happy to see him power through and be up there with the leaders, and then put daylight between him and the chasing too. What a performance, and what a race!
The other one as well that I was watching with keen interest was Johnny Brownlee, because Johnny, we know, has had a pretty rough year. Hayden taking him out on the bike in Leeds, busting his. I love to give Hayden a little shit about that. But he was right up there too. But yeah, I mean, I got while you were talking, then I got the results just so we have them. So it's Matt Hauser first, Vasco Velasquez second, Hayden Wild third, Johnny Brownlee fourth, Kenji Nima fifth. I mean, I don't need to go too much further than that.
What's the overall though?
Yeah, mate. The overall, I think. How do I check that?
Should be just below. If you're on the Try 24/7 website, it'd be just below.
I'm not on the Try. Okay, here we go. Overall, currently, I know that's London. Where's overall? Oh, I'll find that link.
Yeah, I think we had some copy and pasting issues when we were putting the notes together this morning, and I haven't replaced the existing ones.
But what was I going to say was, yeah, like it was a really compelling race, and it's like I said, unlike that women's race, it really did sort of chop and change, and yeah, it was, you didn't know who was going to win, and even when you thought you did, things changed. Like Hayden really faded. I thought we'd see Hayden. Maybe when was it Vasco passed him or Hauser passed him, I thought that Hayden was going to be a little bit strategic and just jump on the shoulder and follow. He didn't. He it's the first time in a long time that I've really seen Hayden sort of look like that. Maybe, to be honest, the last time I seen him look like that was probably Jersey last year, where he had that incredible finish with Alex Yee and Johnny Brownlee again, where he'd done all the work to drop Vincent Louis at the start, and then he's pulled off.
I mean, they mentioned this in commentary, the fact that he'd, in Jersey, when he came out the blocks and put that power down too early and then got caught. This didn't feel like that. It felt like he faded much sooner because he did the short shoot and then he faded quite quickly because they were soon back together and racing together. I thought he was being more sensible and just going to run on their shoulder, like you say, and try and sprint them at the end. But I think he really did run out of puff. Now, I found the overall standings after Munich, and with Matt Hauser in first place on 29 points, Hayden Wild in second place on 28 points, Johnny Brownlee in third on 23 points, Kenji Nina, after his strong performance, is in fourth place with 20 points, and Vasco Velasquez is in fifth with 19. The overall team standings after Munich is the Scorpions in first, Sharks in second, Cheetahs in third, Runners in fourth, and the Eagles in fifth.
Scorpions 164 points. Mate, the women's race, to be honest, I don't think we really need to go through it in too much detail because basically
I
what
don't
happened
think
in the
we
women's
need
race,
to do we don't need to do a shot for shot on this one, do we?
Georgia got to the front and stayed at the front and won the race.
There,
that was some of the interesting things about the women's race were that Cassandra Bergeron, who was so strong last week, we heard had come off her bike in the pre-course recce the day before in the rain. And apparently everyone, and I heard this from people on the ground as well as in commentary, she was not keen. As soon as it knew, she was convinced that she was going to have a bad race. And it was bizarre to see that she was first or second out of the water. And then by the first split, had dropped 20 seconds off the back of the pack and was so close to being eliminated because you could just tell she must have been so cautious going around those corners. Like she just completely lost the nerve.
I mean, it shows
how to then see her drop the fastest run,
isn't it?
Yeah, but like that's when I like to see that she then does the team thing and goes and gets the fastest run split for the team points. Like, again, an element of the team thing that's quite good. But mate, it really did show that the impact of confidence because she's a class athlete and she got destroyed.
Totally. I mean, in my mind, the only race that was exciting in the women's side was the race between Sophie Caldwell and Taylor Spivey behind Georgia Taylor Brown. Because watching, it was a reversal. The finish was a reversal. Blah blah blah. The finish was a reversal of last week, and watching Sophie Caldwell do what she did and hold off Taylor and Tyler in this one, I was pleased to see it, mate. She's a strong athlete.
Well, that's why I was sort of talking on about the stuff at the start is because while I thought what Georgia did at the finish was incredibly respectful, I was a bit annoyed because I wanted to see what was happening behind when you had this incredible sprint finish between Taylor Spivey and Sophie Caldwell, and we didn't see it. Like it was all cameras on Georgia as it should be, but I still haven't really seen that sprint play out, which I would love to have. But I mean, I think all three of those women are incredible athletes, like Sophie Caldwell, Taylor Spivey, and Georgia Taylor Brown are incredible athletes. But mate, GTB destroyed everybody. Like she was in a league of her own on the weekend, and it actually made it quite boring, if I'm honest. Like
it did. Funny, I mean, it's sometimes it's nice to see quality play out like that. You can still take some enjoyment out of watching somebody do what they do so well. But it was nowhere near as exciting as watching the men's racing this week because there was no real jeopardy or drama playing out on the road.
What's going on with Beth Potter? We haven't seen Beth Potter feature at all.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't think she's got the championship racing in her. I think, I just don't think she's made for this kind of racing.
It's interesting because after the arena games and stuff, I would have thought that she had this sort of racing, but she's just not. I really feel like because of the way Super League goes, and it's not the same racing as World Triathlon Series where it is a group. Any weakness is exposed so quickly, and I think that's what you see is these very well balanced athletes. Because I mean, you look at Hayden, for example. We've always questioned his swim. His swim has come along in leaps and bounds. It's those real well-balanced athletes that seem to be doing really, really well here. I know that there was a lot of problems for a lot of athletes it was freezing cold, apparently. So in the men's race, especially seeing the bigger guys do well kind of makes sense. I know I was talking with Tyler, and he said it's too cold for him. He was just absolutely freezing.
And he was Tyler, great bloke that he is, and great to see his force plate last weekend. But he was one of the athletes that was immediately losing time on the bike. Every time they got to a corner, there was a daylight coming between
Crashed
him
the day before as well.
Wheel ahead of him. So I think there might have been a confidence issue on the bike there as well. Love you to bits, Tyler.
Yeah, he came down the day before as well.
Oh, did he? Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's another one that came down. So that's what it's true. I think when the courses are super crazy like that, whether they want to admit it or not, it does play. Even I think we've had Johnny Brownlee say that as well. Like after his crash, he knows he has to get over it and he's trying, but it's still you can't help it. It's an involuntary thing.
Yeah.
So
on the women's side, the standings are as such. Georgia Taylor-Brown in first place with 28 points. Taylor Spivey in second place with 27 points. Sophie Coldwell in third place with 26 points. Verena Steinhauser on fourth place on 17 points. And Beth Potter in fifth place with 16 points. And I won't go through the team standings again because we did that previously, but they are universal.
Now James Bale. At the start of the episode, I was talking about how I was preparing the doc this week, and an article about a penis on a jersey got my attention. I had the same experience twice this week when I jumped into the MX group.
The most though, was it?
It wasn't because Jeff Bonin had shared this piece of news in the group, and I got the article here from Tim Oria at Try Today, and that is an unexpected move. Cameron Wurf about to race Super League Triathlon Malibu. Ineos Grandia's rider Cameron Wurf is set to shake things up as he joins the lineup for Super League Triathlon Malibu. Wurf, the Australian pro cyclist who's also reached the pinnacle of long-distance triathlon winning IronMan events and qualifying for Kona, will be taking on the Kings of Short Course Racing on the shores of Zuma Beach. The 39-year-old will go head-to-head with some of the best cyclists in the sport, such as Hayden Wilde and Johnny Brownlee, as he sees whether he can mix it up with the fastest format of the sport. He says, "I'm extremely excited, but also absolutely petrified. Crap in my pants at the same time. I grew up as a kid on Sunday afternoons watching Macca racing sprint triathlon on Channel 10 with Brad Bevan and Greg Welsh, and it was awesome to watch. That disappeared, and then Super League came around, about when I took up the sport, and I've always followed it and wanted to be part of it. Watching it, knowing it isn't the most suited to my characteristics, but I want to experience it. Ideally, I will do really well and get to do it again." He laughed. "It's the opposite end of the spectrum to what I've focused on, and coming into the sport so late and out of respect to Ironman and my limited time in the sport, I've focused on that rather than trying to do everything. So this is quite exciting to see where I'm at. I'm looking forward to being on the start line with everyone. It's a real honor for me, an entirely different field to what I've raced before. There are some great young stars. Some of them were only just being born when I was already in Europe competing in rowing in 2001. So they are a lot younger than me, but I'm really excited to spend the week with them and crew and to compete." I love it, mate.
Yeah, I mean, look, fair play. I love the fact that he wants to have the experience. He wants to know what the intensity of Super League racing is like. And Cameron Wurf is a sportsman that I've got the utmost respect for, because he's just the way he's crossed the board on many different sports throughout his career, be it rowing, be it pro cycling, be it triathlon. He is someone who deserves a lot of respect for what he achieves and what he does. And, yes, in this racing, I mean, you'd be surprised if they were starting to shoulder to shoulder on the bike on these complex courses, needing that sort of power that they've got and the confidence in the corners, especially on a wet course that we just saw in Munich. you'd be surprised at how well he would do. The level of bike handling that a pro cyclist has and the confidence that they can get going in and out of corners and the power he can lay down, he would be up there contending. The problem you've got, Mr. Wurf, is that you're not going to be up there, mate. You're going to be way behind on that swim. That's the issue. And I don't think, and it's really unfortunate, we're not going to, as an audience, be able to see what sort of impact or what it's even like him racing shoulder to shoulder on the bike against these guys, because he's going to be so far behind on after the swim. So it's going to be like that World Cup that we saw however many years ago, where he's just on his own. And that's a real shame.
I was listening to Joe's podcast. They were talking about it and saying, like, how much time can he lose in 300 meters? A lot.
Yeah,
I think
mate, it's going to be akin to that time that I raced Gomez in over 300 meters. It's going to be a very similar amount of time that he's going to lose.
I also think, again, we people fail to understand just how serious these guys ride bikes. Like, the thought that Cam Wurf would get into this bike pack and just drop them all like bad habits. Cam Wurf is an incredible rider, but people keep forgetting that these ITU guys, these short course guys, can seriously ride bikes. Like, they're not just rolling around the course. Like, if you look at what was they saying, the average speed around that Munich course was like 46k an hour or something. It was something ridiculous like that. You look at all the turns and everything they had,
and the
to carry that much speed like that. Yeah, it's that maybe that number, I can't remember, but I love that he's doing this. Like I said, I think you hit the nail on the head. Cam Wurf is such a legend of sport, not just our sport, but sport in general. And I think, if for nothing else, it certainly got me a lot more excited about this race, the prospect of having Cam part of it. But yeah, I think we're going to see he won't feature as much as I'd like him to.
That's a real shame, isn't it? I wish it was a triple mix or something, so at least one of the stages started on the bike. Because, you know,
or the time trial start they had in Munich last year.
Yeah, because that would be cool. Because then
that would be cool.
You never know. Like you say, he's not gonna, on the bike. He wouldn't drop them like they were standing still, but he would be more competitive than a lot of people out there are probably giving him credit for. And, you know, he might even be able to show him a thing or two around some of these corners, because, you know, he's a hell of a biker. But it's just that swim. It ain't gonna do him any favors, bro. He ain't gonna do you any favors, mate.
Exactly. Speaking of this week, it is the Eliminator this week, which is the what is it? It's 3 regular swim, bike, run triathlons with a short break in between. The last 3 athletes to finish stage 1 will be eliminated. The same again in stage 2. However, I don't know if you noticed this, mate, but they've changed the rules a little bit this year. So normally it's the same thing. So swim, bike, run, take a break. Swim, bike, run, take a break. Swim, bike, run, take a break. Except this year, the final one is a pursuit style start. So it's based on your time gaps, which means you can't just sit in the pack and make sure you're not the last 3 and cross the line. You actually have to.
You're racing for that pursuit.
Go
That's quite
as
cool. I like
hard
that.
as you can. Clever. It's I think that's a very clever change that they've made to this, because yes, it's also about not being the last 3, but you can't conserve. So that it's going to be a smash fest, and I love that. So I love this format of racing. So I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, I watching it this morning, it reminded me how fun it is to watch. I mean, anybody out there listening, tune into Super League because it's worth it.
Well, mate, there's another race coming up this weekend that we're going to talk about in the next section of the show. But before we get to that, you sat down with a guest this week, didn't you?
I did. I sat down with someone who's made headlines for multiple reasons over the last few weeks, and here we go. Interview with Sam Laidlow. So I'm joined by Sam Laidlow, a French professional triathlete who's finished 8th in his first Ironman World Championships at the age of 23. Other results include a second place finish at Ironman UK and a win at the Spanish Iron Distance race in Girona province. Currently ranked 19th in the PTO rankings, and most recently he was part of Team Europe, who won the Collins Cup. Sam, welcome to the pod, mate. How are you?
I'm very good, yeah, very good. A bit better now after arriving in Dallas and just being able to relax for a week, because it's been a bit hectic these last few days.
Yeah, when did you get there?
So I arrived in Dallas just last night, and now I have just less than 2 weeks here in Dallas, and then I'll fly out to Kona and spend another 2 weeks there. Yeah,
cool.
I can't afford to spend any more than 2 weeks there right now. So yeah, I'll hopefully next year I can do some heat prep in Kona. But as an up and coming athlete, I haven't got the budget for that quite yet.
I don't think many people have got the budget for Kona this year, right? I mean, whether you're up and coming or whether you've already ridiculous. Made it, it's a strange situation we found ourselves in. I mean, I was going to ask you about that later in the podcast, but being that we've stumbled across that topic, what are your thoughts about that situation at the moment? The cost involved with Kona, the fact that I don't see that cost reducing a huge amount. Do you think something's got to change to facilitate the pro racing there? I mean, what's your take on it?
So I think it's a shame if it doesn't change. I think Kona will always be the race that people want to win. So I think no matter how expensive it is, I think the best will always go. That being said, like just looking at the way Ironman going about it is, and especially now with the PTO and Super League, it's made us realize I kind of feel they're taking the piss, because if you let's say you go to Kona as an up and coming athlete and come have a good race and come 10th, you're barely you're not even covering your costs in terms of prize money, which is really bad. I think there needs to be a stepping stone where they say, okay, we're going to invest in the pros, and because I think that's the only way that long term we're going to have heroes of the sport, and that's going to inspire people to take up triathlon. Nobody, kids wouldn't want to play football if they hadn't seen a Messi or a Ronaldo, so it's I think there needs to be something done, and I think PTO and Super League are doing a very good job of that. Yeah.
Do you think the PTO are capable of filling that void with their race series that they're launching, with their Opens and the Collins Cup? Do you think that is the kind of thing Ironman should be aiming for?
Yeah, I think the advantage Ironman have is that they were the first there. So for many years, nobody questioned what they were doing, and we didn't have a choice. But when I think back at racing, I remember doing Barcelona, and it was my only Ironman of the year when I was 20, and I mean, I didn't win anything. I came 7th. It wasn't too bad. But even if you had a really good race, I remember, for instance, Freddie Van Lierde, who's had a great career. He came 2nd there. Didn't get a Kona slot for the first time ever, and I think he won $3,000, and that was probably his only Ironman that year, and that barely covers his costs to get there. So first, and that's somebody who's an Ironman world champion. So it is taking the piss. And now what we're seeing with the investment from the PTO is that it's really bringing the sport to another level, and I think we'll see that in Kona. I think there'll be a lot of guys that will go very, very fast this year, because obviously from the outside it seems okay, yeah, we're getting more money. So you could look at it okay, well, let's say in Edmonton I won $40,000, but actually what everybody's doing is just they're reinvesting that in their own system to be better athletes, whether it's just I don't know, employing a team around them, or doing more aero testing, or more lab testing, or more this. So I don't think that athletes are necessarily putting it in their pocket and buying fancy houses. It's just bringing more than anything. It's bringing the sport to the next level, and that's what's really important.
Do you think we need to see more professional athletes being contracted or racing the PTO races? If you're on the PTO rankings, for example, should you be contracted to race those races to try and put that interest into those races? Because we're seeing a fair amount of athletes do it, but we're not seeing all the ranked PTO athletes going to the PTO races.
Yeah, I think we will do next year, maybe when we have the 200k distance as well. Mm-hmm. At the moment, the PTO circuit definitely favours the shorter course athletes. We saw it in Edmonton, and even I have a short course background, I would say, and I'm a good swimmer, so I can get by. But I'm really looking forward to the 200k distance, and I think that once they have both, it will whether it's Joe Skipper or others, they will definitely come to them events, because at the moment it's just they wouldn't be competitive in that kind of race scenario. And I think it will be I think it will be really good if we could get a proper circuit like there is in short course world, on the WTS, but just for long distance, and even if it means having a middle distance and a really long distance. But yeah, I'm certainly excited to, especially given that I tend to blow up on the last 5k of the marathon, and I think it will only be 30, 34, 35k run or something, 36 maybe, I can't remember, for the 200k distance. So that'll be I'm looking forward to it. Yeah.
Do you think the PTO races are capable of making Kona irrelevant, or like you said at the start, do you think Kona will always have a place?
I think Kona will always have a place, unless obviously just Ironman decide to move it, and then I think that would be a massive mistake on their behalf, because then people literally wouldn't care about the Ironman circuit, and I think we'll already see it this year with the 70.3 Worlds. So it's kind of mean, yes, there will be a lot of good guys, but there are also some very, very good names who won't be there. And like me myself, I haven't even had time to qualify. Like, it was so far down the priority list for me that I haven't even had time to do a 70.3 this year. Yeah, I think Kona will, as long as the race goes ahead, will always have the same flavour to it, and people will always want to win it. Because at the end, well, I've grown up with that being my dream. So even if tomorrow there was no prize money there, I would still find a way of going, as long as there was the best in the world there. And at the end of the day, that's like pretty much the only race where all the best Ironman athletes show up.
So a minute ago, you mentioned Super League, and you also mentioned your short course background. Have you ever been tempted to throw your hat in for a wildcard at a Super League race just to see what it's like?
I haven't, no, simply because, well, I don't think I would be any good at it. It looks good fun. But yeah, if they had any sense, they probably wouldn't select me. I've trained with a lot of the guys who race on that, whether it's like some of the French guys from when I used to race in the French Grand Prix circuit in Poissy, Aurélien Raphael, or even Max Stapley, and loads of the guys, and they're just people who have an amazing ability to cope with very high lactate, and I think it's the same with Hayden or any. They're just people who, I think it favors, in a way, it favors people who are like pure racers, but who are also genetically, I don't like to use this word, but inefficient in their energy usage, because they're people who can just like have a turbo and go very fast for a very short amount of period, but actually, like, if you were to stick them on an Ironman, chances are they'd probably like run out of fuel quite early on. So it's difficult. Yeah, the only guy. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think all the guys who do well in Super League, I think, would generally struggle to be good at Ironman. So I would say I could probably be competitive if I focused on it at like an Olympic non-draft event. But Super League is another level again, especially as I'm not particularly a very fast pool swimmer. I do all right in the open water, but some of the guys I know there just have some crazy times in the pool, and also are just really good at them kind of 3, 4, 5 minute efforts even on the bike, and way better than me. So no, it's not something I've thought about, to be honest.
So tell me about your entry into the sport, mate, and spending your formative years in the south of France. What was it like? Where were you, and what were you doing? And what about triathlon turned your eye?
I gave everything a go as a youngster. I liked doing all sports. I was doing a lot of judo, a lot of rugby, and but deep down, because my parents owned a triathlon training camp business, everybody was talking to me about Hawaii, and so from a very early age, I kind of just. It's funny because I was actually really underconfident as a kid, but the only confidence I kind of had was just saying that I wanted to win Hawaii, and that was the only thing that my confidence rested upon. And it's funny because like when I moved away and started going into like the French structure and stuff, and you suddenly realize, wow, there's loads of other kids that can swim, bike, and run. I started to lose that confidence slowly, and but that being said, it was a great experience growing up. I think that's why my parents moved it. They kind of knew deep down that the environment they wanted to bring their kid up was going to be way better in the kind of open air Pyrenees that we had, and so it just meant that from a very early age I would go out on the bike, and when we had people in, I would ask my parents if I could go out on the bike with them, and so already at like 10 years old I was going out for 100k rides, and it started from there. I always really liked the longer the event went on, the more I liked it, and I guess Ironman is like the longest competitive sport, where you can generally make like a professional living. If there was double or triple Ironmans, I'd probably give that a go. And it's funny because recently I was talking to Braden Curry at the Collins Cup, and I was just like questioning him because I was amazed by all the like coast to coast and all the races that he's done. He's done like 9-day long races, and I just find that fascinating because I've never really thought of myself as being the most talented guy, but I know how to suffer, and I really feel that I almost thrive off other people suffering. So there's just a massive kind of part of mental freshness and kind of how do you say it, like your deep motivations, I think, really play a role in them kind of races, and you need to know who you are as a person to excel in the longer events. And that's what I really like about Ironman, is that last hour of racing is like, it makes you discover so much about yourself and who you truly are.
Totally that. And when did it become clear for you that you had a future in the sport?
I would say it goes in waves. It's never even like now. You always have, everybody has doubts, and I think I would say it's only really this year, maybe last year, that it's really become like a viable project. But that being said, like, I was never gonna stop. I was still gonna keep trying and keep trying. But I think now, especially with the PTO, it's made the whole project of being a professional and earning a living, and maybe like being able to not necessarily think about, oh, what do I have to do, like, as soon as I finish triathlon. Like, I think now, if you are the best, you can generally make a good living. So as I said before, when I was young, I used to think I could win Kona, and that I kind of, when I was in the short course world, that slowly disappeared, that kind of confidence. And so then I decided eventually to leave, and I just basically ran out of money. And so I moved back to my parents' place and asked my dad to coach me. And that's when I kind of slowly started building the confidence back up again, because I surrounded myself with people that did believe in me. And then I kind of realized that actually, if you don't believe in yourself, then nobody's going to do it for you. So slowly but surely, I've kind of gained that confidence again. And now my hopes are definitely set on winning Kona, whether it takes me 2, 3, or 20 years, it doesn't matter. And I guess eventually, even if I don't achieve it, I would have given it my best shot, and that's why I'm not scared of saying that that's what I want to achieve.
So that's the dream, is it, Kona? Really, earn yourself a living in the other entities around the sport, but Kona is the childhood dream that drives you.
Yeah, exactly. I'd say that's it. And then more so now, I'm realizing that like, you can, results really aren't what I'm going to remember when I've finished my career. And I think I'd like to have an influence in the sport. I'd like people to remember me for my values, and just like maybe hopefully get into a level where I can help other kids to have the same upbringing as me, or not the same, but similar opportunities, because I kind of feel like I got it all handed on a plate, and it's not the case, because my parents had massive like financial struggles, and so everybody has their own problems. But relatively, like, if you look at it on paper, my parents moved to France when I was 3, set up a triathlon training camp business. I grew up in that environment. At 13, I left to a sports school. Then at 16, I got to the next level with French Centre, and it just, on paper, it all looks like so perfect. And obviously that's not the case. But I just feel that I would like to use my platform and my craft eventually to be able just to inspire some other people. Yeah, because I don't think when I'm sat drinking whiskey when I'm 70, I don't think I'll necessarily remember the moments like where I lifted a banner as much as I would like what I've left behind. And so that's really, I'd say Kona is my short-term goal, even though it might take me ages. And then bigger than that, I want to eventually try and be bigger than just triathlon itself, because I'm fully aware it's quite a small world.
Where do you base yourself now? Where do you spend your day to day?
So still my parents' place. That being said, this year I've spent very little time there. Before the Collins Cup, I hadn't been there for 3 months. I was left, right, and centre. Try to go away on camp quite a lot. But yeah, through the winter, I based myself in the south of France, in the Pyrenees, near Perpignan, which is on the south east coast. It's actually like an hour north from Girona, and the more I travel, the more I like it there.
Yeah, nice part of the world, definitely. I spent a fair amount of time down there myself. It's
okay, sweet.
The Pyrenees is a lovely place to ride a bike.
Yeah, I think what I like about it is that we have the sea, so I can do some flat riding. I'm at the foot of the Pyrenees, so I can, if I want to start a 40k climb, I can literally get out my door and go up 40k. And also it's a bit quieter than, it's very similar terrain to Girona and all that area where the cyclists are. It's just a bit a bit quieter. And but I could also see myself living. I'm literally one of the furthest southerly town in France, pretty much. So I could move. I could see myself in Spain, maybe somewhere between Girona and my place eventually. But who knows? I might meet a Brazilian woman and decide to move to Brazil. We never know.
So let's talk about the recent Collins Cup. How did obviously you were on the winning side, but how was the Collins Cup from your perspective? How did it go, mate?
So the the weekend in general was a great experience. I learned a lot, and even just like met so many of my idols. I would say I found myself playing pool with Crowy, and just like having breakfast with Christian and Gustav, and the whole weekend was an amazing experience. So that's the first thing I would take home from it. And then obviously there's my individual performance, which was probably one of the worst I've ever had. I just had some terrible gut issues, and but I mean I know what the problems are. Luckily, I didn't come away from that race kind of like doubting my ability, because there's nothing worse. It's worse coming away from a race when, I don't know, you've come 15th, but like you feel like you couldn't have done any better than here, literally just knowing like I was firing on like one cylinder. And so I know what the problems were, and basically I need to take a little less caffeine before the start, so I don't have to run to the toilet about 8 times on the half marathon. That was my problem. Yeah,
I think we all know that feeling well, don't we? Anyone who's run anything over a half marathon distance knows that feeling very well at some point in their lives.
Yeah. But the thing is, I'd never really had gut issues. I never had gut issues in a race, and I wanted to, for some reason. Yeah, I mean, I said it in a previous podcast. So I'm not going to keep blaming him, but I was listening to Christian, who was telling me to drink a stupid amount of caffeine, and I did. And basically 700 milligrams of caffeine is far too much for my stomach to take before the race.
Yeah, and I think that's a process to test, not on a race weekend sometime, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah, but it's very difficult when an Olympic and Ironman champion tells you something. You generally do it. If you would have told me to race in a thong, I probably would have done it.
Yeah, fair enough. So obviously the weekend was from an outside looking in perspective, because I wasn't there this year, was dominated by your thing with Sam Long. How did that come about?
Yeah.
How is it now? Are you talking again, or are you? How was things left?
How was things left? I mean, no, we haven't been in contact since the race. We managed to have a word even before the race after the big outcry. But I guess working back, it started off with just me and a mate doing a rap online, because the PTO had asked us to just like announce that we were going to the Collins Cup, and they said like think outside of the box. So we just like did a little rap, and it had a paragraph about Sam Long, but there wasn't just about him. There was also stuff about Lionel and anyway. So from there on, I think I'd noticed that he blocked me on Instagram or something, so I couldn't see his post. I didn't know what he was doing. And then he won a race and then unblocked me. So then I started commenting his post, but like it was all. I just wanted it to be banter. There's nothing. I mean, there is this whole thing about getting into people's head, but more than anything, I just wanted a bit of banter, and I wanted him to give it back. So I think it's healthy, and I think the sport and the spectators need it. And he just took it very personally, and I mean that's his choice. And so it got to a point where the problem is I was at the Collins Cup, and the PTO were asking for more and more and more, and I just kept giving it, and it was all. I didn't really realize how much it affected him, because I kind of feel like if it was anybody else on the start line, they would have just given it back, and it would have been funny. I've done it before with Joe Skipper, and we're good mates, so there's nothing there. It's just, it was, people were questioning whether it was real or not, whether it was real beef, and he generally was affected. And so what happened is when we were doing an interview, and he kind of, at one point I just said, I think you're taking it too seriously, because I could see him like building up, and it was like he flipped a switch, and he stomped off and like made a hole in the wall in the hotel. And then I was like, I felt really bad for him more than anything, just because that wasn't my goal. I didn't want at all for him to feel bad. So I'd certainly lost a lot of energy leading into the race. That and all the media commitments we had that week in the Collins Cup, we got to bear in mind that the Collins Cup is more of a show more than a race. Like the athletes are paid to go, not based on results. So yeah, it's something people need to remember, and I think even the athletes to a certain extent is that we're just there to put on the show. But it's very difficult for us to not look at the competitive side, because actually, like, losing there feels so bad, because there's no other races where you have a win or lose situation. It's like normally you win and then it's like a slow, like, you progressively will be less and less happy, I guess, depending on your result. Here it's like you win or you lose, and even Sam Long, to a certain extent, I think he came second, but it felt like a win because he beat me, and so it was, yeah, it was. And then after the race, so he kind of basically said on stage on one of the, like, I think it was the night before the race, we had one last media commitment, and he said, "Oh, well, I feel like I've been attacked, and I've changed as a person. I don't want to give banter out, and And so then I gave him my apology, and so that from there on it was fine, and that's why this race, here in Dallas this weekend, I'm not. I mean, of course, I want to beat them, but I want to beat everybody else, and it's the same as every race. And I'm sure, or I hope that he wants to beat not just me, you know.
Yeah, man. I mean, so it was coming from more of a sort of cheeky, bantery place than an intentional attack of the mind games. But you think it got to? I mean, obviously it got to him, but it didn't really get to his performance, did it? I mean, it's kind of, I suppose, mind games have two sides.
I think. Same. I'd mentioned this as well, but I feel the sports where people do play mind games and try to get into other people's heads are generally sports that have a huge technical aspect. So, like, let's say you get into a boxer's head and he's really frustrated. He's going to go out there like swinging punches and completely forgetting what he was meant to do. When you're on a bike, like if you're angry on the bike, there's nothing more dangerous than that. You know, you're just gonna press on the pedals and catch the guy in front of you. So yeah, it was strategically for me. It was probably a very bad decision. I kind of got both of them a bit angry, calling them a duathlete. But I generally feel like, coming back to the whole experience of the weekend in the Collins Cup, is that I generally feel like I needed that beating. You know, I mean, I'd had a very good season up until then, and I've never had a season to date where there hasn't been a low. So I'm hoping that was my low, and it certainly humbled me and made me just like go back to work and think, okay, right, I need to be able to back up the smack talk now. So maybe I did it the wrong way around, but it was a great learning experience.
But the sport's got to have a bit of that, mate. It's got to have a bit of that in it, isn't it? We can't just have a bunch of robots being respectful to each other. You know, you've got to have a little bit of interest, and behind the scenes drama. It keeps a certain segment of the audience engaged. I don't think.
Definitely.
Do you plan to tone that down going forward, or are you going to still sort of stay you and try and be sort of, you know, give a bit of that?
Well, I think I will. I just need to maybe get to a level, which I will get to a level where I can back it up. And at the moment, I'm not far off it, but there are some better athletes, and I would like to create a bit of beef, but also I just need to choose my targets maybe a bit better, and we'll go on from there. But I think also it's quite important that the PTO, or whoever the race organisers are, kind of, I wouldn't say, I don't want to. They're not staging it, but they have to plan it to a certain extent so that the athlete is protected, because it can very easily become way more. So even at my level, like, it wasn't a viral. I mean, the video of Sam and me like having a row didn't go viral. But that being said, I still had like quite a few hate messages, like from, I don't know whether it was like some I think it was somebody in Asia who was saying that, like, I can't say Wong and ping pong in the same phrase, which is true. Like, if you take everything seriously, but then every stand-up comedian like needs to go to jail, you know. So it's and then straight after the Collins Cup, I had my Instagram hacked, and so it was there was a lot of it generally did affect me, and there needs to be a certain extent of protection and just preparation, I would say, so that both the athletes know that they are going to go head to head and they are going to take the piss out of each other, because otherwise it can deviate very quickly.
Yeah, we don't want any major sense of humor failures, because like you say, people do jump onto a side nowadays in the society we live in. It's online is a very strange place to be.
Yeah, and it's like also I mean, I had like so many great people, so many positive messages of people saying, "Oh, you're great for the sport. It's great what you're doing," and that. And it's only the one, like there might only be like it's the 0.1% of comments that like are negative, but they're the ones that you remember, unfortunately. And yeah, I mean, it's quite. I find it relatively easy to. I think more so. I think you have to learn to just accept there are going to be people that dislike you. But at the end of the day, I'd rather people like me or hate me, because at the end of the day, that they're gonna watch me. They either want me to win or to lose. But I don't want people to just like when they get asked, "Oh, what do you think about Sam Laidlow?" I don't want him to sit on the fence and just say, "Oh, well, yeah, I don't really know." Like I think
Sam who
people yeah people know who I am and who Sam Long is, and people like or dislike Sam Long, and I think that's good for the sport and good. Yeah, you have to kind of try and find what your character is and caricature it to a certain extent, because that's the only way. I mean, if you're just people don't want to watch normal, unfortunately.
No.
So yeah.
So let's move away from that. What's the plan for the rest of 22? We're moving into the final phase. You're in Dallas now, then you're going out to Kona. How do you plan to attack these two races coming up?
So just like any other, really, if there's one thing I realised in both St. George and Edmonton is that you need to, like, we are professional triathletes, and I don't think like at this stage in my career, I'm still gaining experience going to races, and I know that this year I'm not in contention to win neither of these two races. If I do, well, great, but chances are few people have probably had a very bad race. But I really noticed that when there's a big event like a championship event, people want to like reinvent the wheel and try and change maybe too much or push a little too much. And I remember in St. George, there was so many good athletes on the start list, and I was like, how am I going to beat one of these guys? And I'd just come off like the worst race in Texas. I kind of had COVID and felt terrible and DNF'd, and so my confidence levels were so low, and even my fitness levels were, for me, relatively low. But I'd kind of had to just force some rest into me, and I went there with no expectations, and for me, I was very unfit. But that kind of, I just went there and had a very well. First of all, I was fresh, and then secondly, I just had an average to good race. There was nothing amazing about the numbers or anything. It was within my grasp of what I could do, and that got me eighth, and it could have maybe even got me better. I mean, like at 34K in the marathon, I was still third. So I'm not that far away, and I feel fitter now than I was in St. George. So yeah, I just want to go to this race this last part of the season, I just want to carry on what I can do. I'm not, as I said, I'm not at a stage in my career where I can afford to like not go to PTO Dallas and like prep for 8 weeks in Kona or something and just dial in absolutely everything. That will come in 2 or 3 or 4 years, hopefully. But at the moment, it's just a race like any other, and I just want to show a solid performance, because on paper, like I feel like I could do a sub-8 in Kona, and up until now, there's not that many people. I think there's 4 or 5 guys that have ever gone under sub-8. So I mean, it sounds bad, but I just want to do the bare minimum to have a good, solid result, because that's what I need right now in my career.
So you're going into these races with your expectations managed. Looking at the Kona and the fields we've got on both the men's and the women's side, who do you think are the key contenders? Are you going to give us some picks for that race?
Yeah, I think the podium in Kona will be, for the men's, I would say Christian will win it. I'm going to be more detailed than that. I think Magnus will be off the bike with the first few, either first on his own or with the first few guys, and then the two Norwegians will run together, and Christian will run past Magnus, and then it'll be. But I think the podium will be Christian, and then either Magnus and Gustav or Gustav and Magnus. That's my pick. So a very young podium for Kona, I would say. And for the women, I think I'm going to say Daniela will win, and then Lucy followed by either Anne or Kat, I think.
Good picks, solid picks. I like those podiums. It would be good to see it play out like that. I keep making the mistake of not picking Christian to win things, and I'm learning my lessons as I go through the year. Do you?
I think people underestimate his cycling. I think, and he proved that in the Collins Cup. I think he's one of the reasons he can run so fast is because actually he's probably riding around a zone 2 when we're all struggling on the bike. So I think he just hasn't really. People think he's not a good cyclist, or relatively that's not his strength. But I think he knows what he's doing, and I can't see him. And when you see how fast he runs in the heat, I think Kona's made for him, to be honest.
So, do you take much of an off season when the year sort of winds up? What do you do over the winter?
It's a good question. It really depends on how I'm feeling. Like I've had years where I've invested so much and been so serious with myself that I felt like I needed a 5 week like complete break off the sport, and so I've done that and like put on 20 kilos and done a paddy Pimblet, this year, I mean, we'll see how I feel after Kona. I just kind of play it by ear, but certainly I'll probably go and spend a week or two with my girlfriend just driving around in a van somewhere, and then I think I was looking at the calendar. I might do Ironman. Is it Arizona? Yeah, Ironman Arizona, and then maybe PTO. Challenge Daytona. Just because they're 2 races that I haven't done, and obviously I need to qualify for Kona again next year. So it just seems I feel relatively fresh, even though the season's already been going on quite a lot. We've already won World Championships, but I was quite careful after St. George to take a break then. And that being said, I mean, I couldn't do what some of the other athletes I know. For instance, I'm going to Kona with Clement Mignon, and he's been racing he's raced in the last 4 weeks. He's raced 3 times, and now he's doing Dallas, then Kona, then St. George 70.3 Worlds, and it's just I can't do that. Or by the time I get to 70.3 Worlds, I'd be a wreck, and with probably very little motivation. So yeah, we all race we all just have a different balance, and hats off to those who can race a lot more.
Do you ever look at, because I mean, from what you were saying earlier with some of the adventure racing ambitions or races that interest you, the length of races that interest you, do you ever think, I'll just do something a bit different in the off season, go and do an ultra trail or something like that, or a coast to coast?
I have a really good mate of mine who's in the Salomon team, who's a trail runner. And I was trying to convince him for us to go to South Africa and do this 100k race. I've forgotten what it's called, but yeah, a big ultra trail. But it still might happen. I just need to kind of convince my dad, who's my coach, to do it, because it's probably not optimal prep. But I'm also young, and I just want to have fun with it. And I think it would be good also to maybe do a bigger running block in the winter, and then to lay down some foundations later on down the line. And given that that's my weakness, but I've had periods where, like in the winter, I might say, okay, I'm gonna do a 5 week block to run a marathon in training, or something like that. So I do try and find things that motivate me. But like now, there's so many races. I mean, Daytona's in December, so the season could potentially go on to December, and then So I guess that's probably my strategy now. Would probably be that Arizona, Daytona, eat a lot of Christmas cake, and then build back up to next year. And I think I haven't really thought through next year, but I would certainly like to put a bit more emphasis on Kona and make the back season kind of like build into the season. This year was very difficult if you'd race St. George because you already had to be quite fit early on. So we're just trying to maintain or kind of gain. We can gain race experience, but it's very difficult to build fitness as you go through the season because every time you travel to a race, you lose quite well. You don't lose fitness, but you can't obviously get the consistent training. So it's a bit of a compromise.
Do you think there are too many races in a season at the moment? That's why we see. Do you think that's part of the reason we're seeing so many injuries and people pulling out of races? Do you think it needs to be managed a bit tighter, or do you just love to see it and love options?
Another good question. I think there is potentially too many. There's too many pro races in like the 70.3 Ironman races because it's kind of lost its credibility. There's so many 70.3 winners now, and like it's just there's races where there's 3 or 4 races in the same weekend, so you can't expect everybody to be on the start line. So I've certainly. That's just my personal opinion, but I've kind of lost the credibility in some of the Ironman 70.3 races. That's why I haven't even done one this year. But I guess it's not a bad thing because if you're an up and coming athlete or something, it gives you a chance to kind of go progressively, and it can do your name very good to win a 70.3. So like I think it was after St. George this year. The 3 or 4 weeks after that, there was Ironman Lanzarote and there was a few 70.3s and the fields weren't as deep, but it meant that kind of some new people could win races and get their shot for Kona, which is also a good thing. So I think I can't complain. We're better having more races than none at all. It was just like, it felt like going from one extreme to another, obviously with the pandemic and not having a single race to suddenly like being, I don't even know where to start. Like you can literally pick any race. Yeah.
Unreal, wasn't it? It was. I think having that pandemic period was quite. It put into contrast quite how many races there are in a season now. It went from nothing to everything all at once.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, mate, have you got any sponsors or supporters you want to give a shout out to before we wrap up the interview?
I have a lot of very good sponsors. Luckily after this year's been quite a good year for me in the sense that I've been able to sign some new partners with people that I truly share some values. So there's 2 family-run businesses who, I mean, owning a family-run triathlon business is quite it's quite close to my heart. So both Fusion and Head have been two great families I've been able to sign with and brands who really share my values. The main thing is I'm still looking for a bike sponsor. You know, I feel like I race every race at the front of the race, but I still haven't managed to sign a deal with anybody yet. So, but I guess I've also this year signed with Selfish, which has been really good because I generally feel like that was my dream wetsuit that I wanted to, or that was the best wetsuit that I wanted to swim in. Then there's like obviously I've got Schwabel and Valfidus and other brands that really just help me to try and accomplish my dream. Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, look, thanks very much for joining us. Good luck in Dallas and Kona. We'll be keeping a keen eye on how you get on, and look forward to speaking to you again at some point.
Yeah, pleasure. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, man.
See you out there. Cheers.
All right.
Amazing, James Bale. Best work yet.
As you know, I am particularly skilled at that sort of thing, Mr. Ford. So, lean on me.
No, thank you. I think the interview time was 11 p.m. my time, and I was like, I'm probably not going to do that one. So I appreciate you having that chat with Sam. Again, I'm looking forward to seeing Sam race this weekend. I haven't listened to the interview yet, but I'm definitely going to listen to it this weekend. So
yeah, he's a good bloke.
Sure he did amazingly.
Interesting. What I liked was his upbringing. I mean, his mum and dad own a triathlon training center in the south of France, and so he was brought up in the world of triathlon. Everything was sort of, obviously he says that it sounds like it was all laid out for him, but everyone has their difficulties, but growing up in a triathlon training center, going to a triathlon specific sports school, coming back to that triathlon training center, his journey is very triathlon specific.
You can bet that his parents probably wear their finisher shirts.
Probably. Yeah, probably.
Well, Jimbo, what's next?
Welcome to the down low on the PTO. So it's Dallas coming up very soon, mate. And I wanted to put a quick thing in because they've got Michael Johnson as a special guest in Dallas. And he put some comments out there. He said, I'm excited about getting involved at the PTO Tour's first race here in the US, and I'm delighted they've chosen Dallas. I've always been fascinated by the limits of human performance, whatever the distance involves, and triathlon does intrigue me. I remember when triathlon entered the Olympic arena at Sydney 2000. It certainly wasn't the sport for me. I could never go for that long, but I remember thinking that these guys must be the ultimate endurance athletes. It's not just take on one discipline, but to combine three to such a high level and over significant distances. I really like how the PTO is setting itself up as an athlete-owned body, committed to promoting the longer distance of the sport in a different way. The superhuman efforts of these triathletes haven't always enjoyed the spotlight they deserve, so the PTO is set up by the athletes to change that, making the sport more professional to try and take it to the next level in terms of storytelling, prize money, and global broadcast. Thought that was worth adding in there because Michael Johnson's a bit of a legend, isn't he?
Do you think that when he was reading that, there was someone standing there with a gun
Yeah,
to
yeah.
his head and
Yeah,
a piece
I
of
mean,
paper for him?
We've written this for you, Mr. Johnson.
Trying to take it to the next level in terms of storytelling, prize money, and global. Michael Johnson is a legend of sport. We talk.
Totally,
I
yeah.
remember him in Sydney. I think before Usain Bolt, Michael Johnson was the coolest track athlete there was. When I saw this, I was like, man, amazing, Michael Johnson. And then I thought, hang on, it's Michael Johnson? Like that's. Yeah, again, I'm excited to hear what he has to add to because he's in commentary, I believe, isn't he this weekend?
I think so. Yeah, I mean he's a very charismatic and personable ex professional athlete, so he'll add an interesting angle to it all, I think, because I'm intrigued to see what their commentary and broadcast team come up with in Dallas.
They should have got Craig Hummer, who helped us out at Sub 7, because I thought Craig, who's a bullfighting commentator, was excellent. And again, I think Craig's a legend. So come on, PTO, get Craig involved in the US race next time. Speaking of, mate, the start lists are out. And I got this little summary from Patrick Ryan at Try 24/7, and I have a bone to pick with Patrick Ryan. Let's see if you can pick what that bone is as we get through this little bit, Jimbo. In the women's field, Britain's Kat Matthews is the highest ranked competitor. The world number 4 was added to the start list late, and fellow Brit Lucy Charles-Barclay will hope she can surpass Matthews both in the rankings and on the day. But both will have plenty to contend with another late entrant, Flora Duffy, the current Olympic champion. She added the 2022 Commonwealth Games gold to her tally this year and will no doubt be in it to win it in the event in Dallas. New Zealander Ashley Gentle will look to compete a unique North American double in Dallas after she won the PTO Canadian Open, while as the highest ranked US athlete, Taylor Nib, will be up on the race on home soil. Can you guess what maybe I have a slight issue with in that article, mate?
What's the weather like over there in New Zealand, mate? How is it? Look out your window. Is it all right?
Fucking hell. I was like, is there? And then I looked on the start list. They've got her as Australian on the start list. So it's like, mate,
just a typo.
We aren't the same.
No.
Do you reckon he's probably Welsh, not English? I'm guessing. I mean, I have no idea. It's the same though, isn't it? Wales and England are the same country.
Yeah, he's probably cool. Cornish.
This start list, mate, again, as I said last week, I'm much more excited about the women's race in Dallas than I am about the men's race, because we have those athletes like a Lucy Charles and Ashley Gentle, a Taylor Nibble, Paula Finlay, a Holly Lawrence, a Flora Duffy who are on it. Kat Matthews, again, has done incredibly well this year, but I always see Kat as more of a Ironman distance athlete. I think we're going to see those middle distance specialists.
Lisa Norton's there as well to dictate terms on the bike. Ellie Salthouse is racing.
Ellie Salthouse.
It's good to see. Imogen Simmons is there.
I mean, the Sarah Perez-Sala is underrated. She's been so good this year. Lottie Williams, we just saw win Sunny Coast the other day. The other one that I saw that nobody is talking about, that again, she surprised me a lot this year, is that Marjolaine Pierre. She has a absolute killer run. I'd love to see her and Tamara Jewett have a bit of a run battle, because both of these women can run like the clappers. But this women's race, mate, is looking fire. And I think we're going to see those shorter course athletes really dominate. And we're going to see those athletes who are probably more focused on Kona. Again, probably not be as competitive as we're used to them seeing. But I think we're going to see some changes in the rankings. I'm very, very excited to see where Lucy Charles is at the moment. I think I saw an article this week which is basically saying she's primed to go to another level. And who was it? Somebody messaged me this week saying that they think that she might be racing Kona. There was some strategic something. It was on a road to something, and she was part of it. So maybe we might see Lucy Charles-Barclay race Kona, mate.
I think it probably, if there is a chance she should race Kona, it will hinge off how she feels at this race.
I think you're right. In the men's race, the men's favourites, the PTO World number 3, Magnus Ditlev, and number 4 ranked Lionel Sanders head the field, and will both be eager to record wins in the absence of Christian Blumenfeld and Gustav Iden. Again, I think there's a few names that they didn't really talk about too much on this, because you got Magnus Ditlev, Lionel Sanders, Alistair Brownlee, Daniel Beckergaard, Sam Long, Rudy Von Berg, Jackson Laundry, Sam Laidlaw, Frederick Funk, Cole Smith. Mate, it's another fire. Aaron Royal, another guy that nobody seems to talk about, even though he did what he did in Edmonton. Like it's not bad.
There as well. Always good to see.
Yeah, Keenley, Casper Stornes, Nick Castellane, Matt Sharp, Starkowitz. I don't know whether we're going to see him after what happened in the Netherlands the other week, but mate, I love the thought that they're like, yeah, they're keen to get wins without the Norwegians there. Knowing Magnus, he would probably prefer to have this race with the Norwegians there, so he can try to beat them.
Oh, totally.
I find that a little bit funny, but yeah, I mean. I just look at this list and all the big names I see are all people who are heading to Kona. So I'm just like, oh, where are they at? So
it's going to be a very, it's going to give us a good gauge as to where people are and how they're performing. But also, we talked about this last week. It's very close to Kona. So are we going to see real, true, flat out performances from these athletes, or are they going to be using it as a bit of a prep first? And also on a different note, do you think Sam Long will have found his sense of humor again by the time he races in Dallas, or is he still going to be a little bit sensitive?
He's got the home court advantage, mate. So he's probably going to be feeling a bit more confident with the Americans behind him to back him up. And it'll be interesting to see what sort of reception Sam Laidlaw gets there, because I know the Americans like to support an American. And yeah, again, I'm curious to see the sort of reaction the crowd have to Sam Laidlaw. I mean, I thought what he did was fantastic, but maybe not everybody
have a sense of humor sometimes.
Exactly. Well, if you have a good sense of humor and you like to expose yourself to our sort of sense of humor, you should head to mxendurance.com/podcast, where you can sign up for our podcast membership. We keep saying we have got a huge number of changes coming to MX Endurance at the start of next year. We are working very hard behind the scenes on a whole number of big, significant changes. And if you want to find out what they are, sign up. You get the inside line on all the stuff that's happening. You get bonus content. I'm recording a podcast with Macca next week. We're going to talk all about Kona. We're going to talk all about Super League. It's going to be great. You get partner discounts. We just brought on Pillar Performance as a partner. Had a meeting today about another partner. It's all happening. As little as $3.40 a month or $10 a month if you go monthly. You get all the past episodes. It supports us, keeps us doing this podcast. But James, if they want to find out other things about MX Endurance, where do they need to go?
If you want to find out more about MX Endurance, head to mxendurance.com or search MX Endurance on Facebook or at MX Endurance on Twitter or Instagram. If you want to follow me, I'm at bale.james85 on Instagram, or you can follow Tim at tford14 on Instagram. Jump onto iTunes, give the show a review, do it in the podcast app. It's super easy and really useful. If you like what we're doing, tell a friend, help us grow. Got any suggestions, guests, comments, or criticisms, send an email to podcast@mxendurance.com.
James Bell, a pleasure as always, good sir.
Always a pleasure.
I'm looking forward to watching Super League at the same time as you. We can actually have some chats during the race this weekend, or we can critique Edmonton, maybe.
Let's see what we can do, eh?
Too easy, buddy. Well, until next week, thank you very much.
Cheerio.